everybody, this is Michael from Asia Virtual Solutions. Today we're going to be looking at proxies, GSA Search Engine Ranker proxy settings. Proxies is very important for automated tools, because especially if you're working on a VPS and if you don't use proxies and your VPS provider will receive abuse complaints, and if he receive a lot of them, they will shut you down or they will stop your VPS. So for your own best and also pursue your benefits, you need to use proxies, because if you use no proxies and you just keep creating accounts for your projects from the same IP, many sites allow only one sign up per IP or one account per IP. So today we'll look at where proxies are set and how to set proxies. There's two ways to get to the proxy settings. At the bottom here of the screen, this VPS is now blank. This GSA is blank. There's no proxies yet on it. So let's say you just created your VPS and you installed GSA. So you see there's a P here at the bottom. You can click on this and this will take you straight to the proxy settings. Okay, so that P down at the bottom here, this will take you straight to the proxy settings. Another option to get to the proxy settings is click on the option and then under the submission tab, here's the proxy setting. All of these are the proxy configuration, and this settings is here, that same screen we just saw now. So let's just go back one screen and look at this option here. First of all, if you disable that, then there's no proxies used at all. That's very bad. You don't want that. Some people will say, oh, I want to use a VPN, but the VPN is not really intended for bulk, running hundreds of threads at a time. So if you use a VPN and you're willing to use only maybe a handful of threads, then VPN can work. But if you're going to be running at 300 threads, your VPN is not going to be able to handle that load. It's never intended for that. It's more for single connections. So we use proxies, that's better. So there are different kind of proxies. You have public proxies, which is basically scraped from the internet and anybody can use them. Those are the worst proxies. They work, but they will last. They die very quickly. They are not very reliable, and it's not a good long-term solution. For short-term, if you really can't afford $4 or $5 for real proxies, dedicated or private proxies, then public proxies can help. But ultimately, you want private proxies. Private proxies, again, you have two different kind of private proxies. You have dedicated private proxies, which basically means you are the only person using the proxies. Dedicated proxies mean you are the only one that use the proxies. Then you have semi-dedicated proxies or shared dedicated proxies. Normally those are shared between, let me show you on a very good source by proxies.org, which has been around for many years. Is by proxies. So let's go and see what kind of proxies that normally they have. You have dedicated proxies. You see that by dedicated proxies, these are normally more expensive. Then you have semi-dedicated proxies. The semi-dedicated proxies mean you are sharing these proxies with normally it's around 3 or 4 people that share one proxy. So if you really want good results, you should go for dedicated proxy. But if you cannot afford a dedicated, then yes, semi-dedicated is still better than using public proxies. So let's go with, where do you get the public proxies from? Well, you can get a tool like GSA Proxy Scraper, or you can just use the built-in that comes with GSA Search Engine Ranker. So if you click on the configure, then you go to add edit sites. You will see there's a lot of sites here, sites where on the internet where they normally list proxies that you can use. So these will all be public proxies. So everybody at GSA will be able to access these sites, and some of them are updating daily or hourly or all the time. So you see by default some is checked already here. So let's say you want to use these public proxies. So I will just leave the default ones that's checked, and then we go to the options tab, or you can go to add proxies, find online and test, because these proxies are online and we want to test them. So let's click on that, and it's going to fetch the proxies that's checked in this site. So let's see, okay, it found, I'm still checking for the proxies. Nothing found, nothing found. Let's give it a bit. So it's going to go through all of those sites now, and it will then come back to us when it's done. So I'm just going to pause it for now. And when it's done, we can continue again. Okay, so now it found proxies, and it's testing them. So it's going through, it will go through them all and testing the proxies. This will take some time. So you don't want to do this manually all the time. So how do we automate this? So you don't have to come and click button add and then test the proxies every time. To test the public proxies, so we add it now. We use the list, and before I show you the list, if you're Azure Virtual Solutions GSA VPS user, then normally we will have nothing checked here, and we have our own list which we share via the network drive on your GSA VPS, or their proxies, Azure Virtual Solutions public proxies. So we have dedicated servers that run GSA Proxy Scraper all day 24/7, and it scrape proxy sites, and then it checks it non-stop. It's a 24-hour process, and then we share that via the network drive on this computer. So if you get a VPS from GSA from Azure Virtual Solutions, you will see there's a network drive, and in the network drive is proxies. So you can see this was 4:16 at 11:35. So it was updated within the last 10 minutes. You can see the time at the bottom is 11:45. This was saved now 11:46, and it was updated 11:45. So in that case, we will normally set it up for you, and this is much more reliable than going checking all that services. So I'm gonna, you see that this many is dead when I was testing. So I'm just gonna delete all of these now, and then find online and test. So by this time there's only the Azure Virtual Solutions one that is checked, that is added. You see the bottom there. You can add. So if you have your own list that you get somewhere else, this is exactly how you do it. You add it to here. Pass from file, and then you just browse to the file. So you can add your own list if you have a list that maybe it's shared via Dropbox with you. Then you add it to here, click add, select as pass file, and then click OK. And then if you test now, you see there's 3,494 proxies in the Azure Virtual Solutions list. So you see now I was testing them, and you can see they're a lot more working than that public list before. So back to the question about how do we automate this. Options, you click on options and you check that box. Let's say you want to update the proxies every 15 minutes, because these public proxies, they die quite quick. So 15 minutes, don't use this option. We want to test all, not only the bad ones. We want to check the good ones, and we want to check the ones that died. So basically we want to recheck all the proxies. We only want to check the public proxies. You don't want to mess testing with private proxies. Private proxies is working, and the private proxies I found doesn't test very well in GSA because of the username or IP authorization. So here you have proxy, the test to perform. So these are different places that we will test to. Always use Proxy Judge. Do not use Google. You should not use proxies to search Google. They will be burnt out very fast. So the best thing is Proxy Judge. Proxy Judge are proxy testing scripts that run on various servers around the world. So here are some of them that has been added. And we obviously want to remove that anonymous, and I don't see any reason of keeping the bad ones. So within 5 minutes, if they're bad, within 5 minutes remove them. Automatically disable public proxies. Do not disable the private proxies. If for some reason you need to export, then you can check this and select what you want to export, and then it will ask you where do you want to export. So you can then save a location and then export to location, but there's no point in having this. Threads, I say between 50 and 100 threads. Timeout, I would say between 5 and 10 seconds. Otherwise, if it's longer than 10 seconds, then it's a slow proxy. So let's just say 10 seconds. Never use web proxies. They tend to reveal your real IP. So even you use a proxy, I found that web proxies are unreliable and they will expose your IP. This is the two options that you want checked. Randomize the list every time, otherwise it gives false positive if the same list over and over. So we randomize each test, and this just makes it work a little bit faster. Check all except web. Okay, and you see now already we have 120 proxies, public proxies. These are public proxies. Okay, now that's it. That's how you add a public proxies. So let's now look at how do you add if you purchase. Say you went to Azure Virtual Solutions or you're anywhere else, and Azure Virtual Solutions, we sell proxies. If you go to the shop page, you will find the proxy service here, and you will see we have these proxies that's IP authorized. I'll explain in a minute. And then you have dedicated proxies, and these are not dedicated, and semi-dedicated. Semi-dedicated is shared. Dedicated is you only. But these one, you see there's no IP. These are password authorized. This one's best for VPS users because they just lock to your VPS IP. They will connect only to that. They will only work on that VPS IP. So if you have a home computer, don't use IP authorized unless you have a fixed IP. Okay, so Azure Virtual Solutions products, proxy service. That's one option where you can buy them. So when you buy them, you will get a file that looks something like this. Hi, yes, your dedicated proxies have been authorized. We will ask you what is your IP address, and then we authorize, and you'll receive it like. Don't go and try and copy this because these won't work. They're only connected to that IP. They won't work in other IPs. So you can basically just then copy this from the email, copy the proxies. So we're adding now our private proxies, or the same for the semi-dedicated proxies. And then let's just go out. So you want to now add your proxies that you just purchased and you received. You go in here. It's still testing here. I'm going to click the board. We will use both public and private proxies, and I'll explain in a minute why. So you click add. We're going to add our private proxies now. Then right at the bottom, import from clipboard. Now I just copied them now from that file, so I want to import them from clipboard here. If you have a file with just the proxies in, then you can just import from there. That's the second option. Host should be first, but I just copied it, so do like that. Do you want the added proxy? Do you want to test? You can test normally, but I'm going to skip the test for now. Click no. Do you want to set as private? Yes. Now you see we added there 50 proxies, but you see there's like a little line. There's a divider. The left side is always your public proxy, your private proxies, and on the right side is your public proxies. The ones down at the bottom that still have to test. These has not been tested, and those are tested already. This on the left 50 is our private, so we just added, and on the right is the public proxies that we have. Okay, so that's how you add the proxies. So now let's look at what do we use proxies exactly for in GSA Search Engine Ranker. For that we go to the Options tab. Now here we enable proxies. Configure is where we just came from. Now we can say search engines. If GSA Search Engine Ranker have to scrape to find targets to post to, then we use search engines. For the search engines, you do not want to use your private proxies because Google will ban them so fast. It's not true. And if you use the public, we say don't send too many search requests to Google, like 500 search requests in under a second. Let's say we want a 60-second between search queries. So that way the public proxies is not going to get banned so quickly, and disable the banned ones. Then for submissions we want to use, this is where we use only our private proxies again. Submissions is where you create accounts. GSA go out and it creates and register accounts on different platforms that you have selected, and for that we use private proxies. PR checking, no. Verification, no needed. Email checking, not needed. If you really want to, you can enable verification, but it's not necessary. It's not. They don't check the IP normally for verifications. But it is important. The most important is the submissions, and then the search at the top there. Email, don't use proxies for email checking. They're going to block you very quickly. And the last two options, check these. If the system detects that none of your proxies are working, they're all dead or bad or broken or doesn't work, don't continue to submit, because it's going to ban your IP and you're going to get in trouble. So just say stop it if the proxies is not working. Stop the submissions. And then once the proxies has been fixed, automatically started when the proxies are active again. So that is proxies. So now, yeah, so that's all for the proxies. Now there's two different kinds of proxy authorization. When you go to websites, some websites, they will say, okay, we have IP authorized proxies. We provide IP authorization. That's called IP authorization. And then there's user name password authorization. In this case, we used IP authorization. What is IP authorization? It means your computer, your VPS, you have a dedicated IP for that VPS that's been assigned to your VPS, that's been allocated for the VPS. And that IP address never changed. So IP authorized means the proxies is only going to be working on that IP. So like these ones that I just added here for you, the person ordered IP authorized proxies. So we can say here, your proxies is authorized for this IP, and these are the proxies. If this was not IP authorized, if this was username password, then I would say it will look like that. Username and password. All the proxies would have had this at the end. All of them would have this part at the end. The username that was specified and a password that was specified. That's the only difference between username, where is this now? Between IP authorization and username password authorization. The first one here, that is the username password authorization, and then the second one and all the ones below that is IP authorized style. Okay, so I think the IP authorization one is normally the best, because this one, it needs to find, it has to send and check what is the send the request for the username password, and then it's going to wait for the reply. So there's a microsecond each time that it's going to use. Whereas the IP authorized, it can see the request coming from this IP. Okay, it's authorized. It will work immediately. So that is the IP authorization, how that works. I think that concludes it. If you have any questions, or you're looking for dedicated proxies, go to the Asia Virtual Solutions. Scroll down to not X-Evil proxies, that's for something else. You want the normal proxies, proxy service, which is here. Then you select the proxies from here. So I almost forgot one very important question everybody asks: how many proxies do I need? How many proxies? And that's quite important, because you don't want only 5 proxies and you intend to run 500 threads and you have hundreds of projects. The best way to calculate how many proxies you want to run is on this formula, 1 to 10. So one proxy equals 10 threads. This is if you're using dedicated proxies or the IP authorized proxies. If you are using the cheaper shared proxies, the semi-dedicated proxies, then I will even take that down to 5 threads. But if you're using dedicated proxies, then 1 to 10 threads. So what does that mean? So you want to run maybe, say, normally 200, 300 threads. So if you want 300 threads, then it comes to, let's just scale this up. So 10 proxies mean you can run 100 threads. If you want 300 threads, then you need 300 divided by 10, and that is then 300 threads. The rule is always, the more the better. The more proxies you have, the better, because the more accounts can be created. But these is a minimum guideline. If you plan to run 300 threads, then you need at least 30 proxies. Doesn't mean you have to get exactly. If you get 50 and you run at 50 and you run at 300 threads, it's even so much better. The higher probability that you'll create more accounts. Okay, so my advice is start with 30. See how, or you can even just start with 10. The GSA, the Asia Virtual Solution, GSA VPS, include normally 10 proxies, 10 dedicated proxies, which mean you can run 100 threads. But as you grow and you add more projects to your GSA, then obviously you should look at increasing the number of proxies. So in that case, you go to 300 proxies, and you can increase your number of threads to 300 then, or go up to 50 proxies, and then you're good for quite a while. Okay, so if you have any questions or you would like to know more about the proxies, get back to me, and I will try to help you with that. Okay, thanks and have a good day.